right, let's get rocking and rolling here. Thanks everybody for coming and checking out this webinar. Super excited to go over this stuff. I'm Dr. Max Orris. I'm the chiropractor at Agape Family Chiropractic. And thanks for, allowing me to be wherever you are because webinar, but also welcome to my home. So just sit back. If you're driving, just listen. There's not a lot of content in the slides. But I think we're going to go over some really, really cool stuff today. Let me go ahead and get the slides pulled up here and we will get rolling. All righty, so that was the intro. Chiropractic care for kids. So chiropractic has been taking care of kids for, over 100 years. Many, common childhood ailments will respond to this safe, natural form of healthcare. And parents, a lot of times who are already under chiropractic care, will bring their kids in and seek care for them that way. We like to see kids from the start, though. There's so many different reasons. We'll go over those further down the list, but one of the most basic ideas in chiropractic is that dysfunction in the spine and its joints can lead to dysfunction in the nervous system. We call this subluxation. And since the nervous system controls and coordinates all the systems in the body, these subluxations can have a wide range of effects on the body. And chiropractors are the only people that are trained to detect and correct these subluxations. So outwardly, these subluxations can show up with symptoms like ear infections, difficulty breathing, colic, ADD, ADHD, a whole list of other things, especially with kids. I don't want to get hung up on symptoms quite yet. Let's get to some details of how all of this works. So this is Emily. Let's go over Emily's story. So Emily, when she was just a few months old, they were living down in Arizona and were in a pretty bad rear end accident. Emily immediately, following the accident, started crying, was fussy, upset. Mom went to a chiropractor to get checked out, after an accident. Smart thing to do, especially with whiplash. But nobody really mentioned much about getting Emily seen. She was seen a couple of times, but, nothing consistent and nothing regular to truly correct anything that might be going on. Well, Emily started getting ear infection after ear infection, round and round of antibiotics, 2 rounds of tubes in her ears. She started getting anxious, a lot of anxiety as she was getting older. And she got to the point where she couldn't be around large crowds of people. She'd get a migraine, anything new in her life. If she was doing a presentation at school, anything like that, she'd get a migraine, she'd shut down and wouldn't be herself. So we started with Emily, let's see, about 3 months ago. Any of these stories that we go through, we're not cherry picking our stories. These are ones that have happened, just within the last few months that we're telling you guys about tonight. And so we started seeing her about 3 months ago, regular care with her. At this point, migraines are gone, no more pain in her ears. She still was having pain in her ears. Anytime she would go swimming, she couldn't go swimming with her friends because her ears would hurt that bad afterwards that she just couldn't be social. She couldn't be herself. So now at this point, we finished up, you see her certificate there. We finished up her care, her initial care, and she's doing just absolutely outstanding. And her mom said, quote, "I have my daughter back." That's huge. That's what we do. That's big for us. That's why we do what we do. So to go into a little bit of depth about how that works, that's not neck pain, that's not back pain, it's not headaches. I guess with her case, a little bit of headache, but it's a lot more to that. So I'll tell you the story because inside each and every one of us, there's a system in the body that controls everything, okay? Body's made up of a bunch of different systems. You got cardiovascular, immune system, digestive system, list goes on, but there's one system that controls all of that, okay? That system's the nervous system. So the nervous system controls every single function in the entire body. So everybody out there, if you've heard of Grey's Anatomy, so not the TV show, unfortunately, but the textbook, which many people consider to be the gold standard for human anatomy and physiology. On page 4 of Grey's Anatomy, it states the nervous system controls and coordinates all organs and structures in the human body, the entire body, okay? So how many times do we go to our medical doctor, or pediatrician for our kids? We get a physical done. The doctor checks our blood pressure, our height, our weight, listens to our lungs, all that kind of stuff. But when was the last time they ever checked your nervous system? When was the last time you ever had your kid's nervous system checked? Our nervous system controls in everything in the whole body, from our heart's beating, from your dinner that you're eating right now, how well you're going to digest that. And how does it do that? Okay. Does it through our brain, our spinal cord, and all the nerves coming out to everywhere in the rest of the body. So in Emily's case, we found some different areas where her brain and body weren't communicating the way that they should. Signals weren't going back to her brain, and she wasn't able to respond to her environment appropriately. She wasn't able to adapt to what was going on around her, which was shutting her down and giving her these issues. So I'll tell you a little bit of story. Go to the next slide. Perfect. So this right here, this is my boss. That's my wife, Alicia, right there, holding our new son. That's Milo. These two are the reason that I do what I do. At the end of the day, it's so I can come home to them. And anyways, Alicia, my wife, she used to be in the office with us almost every day when we started the office. She's also an ICU nurse, so it was a lot of stress on her, but she was there helping us all the way through. Okay. A lot of people asked, what's it like working with your spouse? Or at that time, she was just my girlfriend. Well, what's it like working with her? Don't you guys butt heads? Yada, yada, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say we didn't butt heads. We had our fair share of disagreements and that kind of stuff. But every time we did, we went back to look at why we weren't able to do things efficiently, or why are we having those issues? And it always came back to communication. Okay. If we were communicating the way that we should be, everything went flawlessly. It was smooth, efficient, no hiccups or anything like that. But if we weren't communicating properly, things started to go awry. You could see it in the office, started having issues, different things. And we were able to adjust that with our communication. Same thing with your body. Your brain and your body have to be able to communicate. If they're not communicating appropriately or correctly, that's when things start to go wrong. And what we do as chiropractors is we make sure that brain and the body connection is there and everything is going as planned. All right. Okay, don't want to get ahead of myself. So here's an analogy to think about how that works and what we do. So if you took your two fingers and you put a rubber band around those fingers, what's going to start happening? Fingers start turning purple, blue, go a little numb, right? What would be the obvious thing to fix that? Obvious thing to do would be to take that rubber band off. Okay, simple as that. However, what if there was something covering up that band or that Band-Aid, that rubber band, so you couldn't see what was going on? All you can see then is the symptoms on the end, your blue fingers, the numbness going on, right? What are you going to do then? Tell you what most people do is they're going to look at those symptoms and try and correct those and fix those. You might get the color back in your fingers the way it should be. You might get the feeling back the way that it should be, but what's still going on? You still have that root cause that's creating those symptoms. Okay. So what we do as chiropractors, and specifically at our office, is we really, really dive into what is causing those symptoms, not just taking care of those symptoms, but why are they even there in the first place? So let's go into a little bit of those symptoms and talk about kids and what kids are going through. So as we go through this, these are different things that we see often in our office, especially with newborns, kids, teens. And you'll really see that I hammer in on the health and development part of that, because it's such a big part of a healthy and properly developing child, is to make sure that the nervous system is functioning the way that it should be. It makes sense, but it's not something a lot of people look at. Another thing that we see a lot of is colic. So fussy babies, right? Crying 3 hours a day, 3 days a week for 3 weeks or more. That is a huge headache. I get it. I've got a newborn right now. He's fussy, Kids are going to be fussy sometimes. But if we're able to take some of that stress off their nervous system, that their body can function the way that they should, and decrease some of that and let them just relax, think about how huge that is, not just, for the kid, but for the families. I mean, that a fussy baby can be rough. I understand. I get it. Torticollis. So head stuck to the side. You'll see a lot of kids, they just turn one direction, can't turn the other direction. Very common. You want to know what the most common way of treating that is? It's to actually, not most common, but one of the ways of treating that is to actually cut that SCM muscle right there, because that's really tight. And if they cut that muscle can relax. However, what controls muscles? The nerves do. So if we can make sure those nerves are firing correctly and controlling that muscle the way it should be, that muscle is able to relax, the kid can then get back to center and be balanced. Okay. Constipation, see that a lot. One of the very first pictures that we went through on the slides, that kid came in with constipation, and he's got a great story too. But he was super colicky because of his constipation. If you're plugged up for days on end as a little baby, of course you're going to be colicky, but got the bowels moving, got everything working the way that it should. Happy kid now. Latching issues is another common thing we see. All right. So kids, again, health and development. Like I said, we're going to hammer that in. But ear infections. Ear infections is actually what I wrote my thesis on when I was in school. I've really dove deep into what causes ear infections, why they're there, and really the different ways to take care of it. And I can tell you that one of the worst ways of taking care of ear infections is actually antibiotics. I don't remember the exact stats or numbers on it, but a strong majority, between 80 and 90% of ear infections aren't even bacterial, they're viral. So when we start giving these antibiotics, it starts affecting the kid's own immune system and weakening their response to everything that's going on. That's why so many kids, you see that repeat ear infection time and time again, is because we're not getting to the root cause of that. So that's what we do in our office, and make sure that we can really, really dive into that. Again, digestive issues. Looking at this picture right here of Theo, he had a lot of anxiousness and digestive issues, and some proprioceptive stuff going on. So proprioceptive is your brain's ability to understand where it's at in space. So a lot of fidgety stuff, a lot of licking, different things like that, or tics. Those are all proprioceptive issues of those nerves going back to your brain and not getting that signal back the way that it should. So with him, they called it the wiggles. When he was anxious, he'd start fidgeting with his hands a lot, and he wouldn't be able to eat a full meal. He'd come home with half of his food in his lunchbox. Sitting at home, he wouldn't be able to focus on his food, be really, really fidgety. All that stuff. He's not even finished with his care plan yet. And all of that stuff has really subsided for him. Even his siblings have noticed the difference. And that's not a common thing for siblings like that to even pay that much attention, but it's so evident with him that they've noticed that. I don't know if you can hear, there's my baby upstairs right now. It's his bedtime, which is not his favorite time of the day by any means. So asthma and allergies, that's another big one that we see really, really often. And again, just immune response in general. We had a kid, Kaylee, who for 4 years leading up to coming into our office, every single winter had pneumonia. Past 2 winters she's been with us, she has not had pneumonia. She's had colds, she's had things pop up, but not as severe and not to the level at which she was having them, which, is a huge effect on her life. Again, with teens, health and development. We want to make sure that these kids are as healthy as possible, their immune system, the way their body functions. But specific to teens, we start seeing the ADD, ADHD. We'll get into a little bit more of that. And then injuries. So kids playing soccer, football, wrestling, you name it, injuries are going to pop up. What chiropractic can do is help prevent those injuries because their bodies are moving the way that they should be. They're very coordinated at that point. But also for injuries, especially things like concussions, what's your head attached to? Your head's attached to your neck. When you get a blow to the head that's enough to affect the brain, you're going to have damage through here, which is going to prolong and make more severe the concussion in the first place. And that last thing on there, the perfect storm, I have that in bold. Talking to people leading up to this webinar, asked them what they wanted to learn about or talk more about, and some people mentioned the perfect storm because I mentioned it quite a bit in our office. So let's talk a little bit about that. So perfect storm, a combination of events which are not individually dangerous, but occurring together produce a particularly bad or critical state is the definition of a perfect storm. And this kid right here in the picture that we have in the slide is a great example of the perfect storm. Had a stressful pregnancy, a challenging birth. He was colicky as a baby, had a lot of stress, started getting sick regularly as he was getting older. Then he started to have some different sensory issues and leaning towards that ADHD kind of thing. Got put on multiple medications for ADD, ADHD, 4 different ones that have huge array of side effects, one of which is stomach issues. And that's actually what brought him in the first place. he was vomiting multiple times a day, 3, 4, 5 times a day. Anytime he got anxious, anytime he was in a new situation, anytime something was new, he would vomit. That's just how his body would respond. He didn't try and do it. He wasn't wanting to do it. Nobody wants to do that. But that's how his body neurologically responded to the environment. It wasn't adapting the way that it was supposed to. So we'll go through that a little bit more. And then the last phase is burnout, when the kid just finally hits that point where they're just down and out. And we don't want that for anybody. We want to stop this perfect storm. We want to stop this sequence of events as soon as we possibly can. So the perfect storm, challenges with pregnancy. During pregnancy, your body, or the mom's body, controls everything going on with the baby. So if you're stressed out, your nervous system is going to be affecting the baby. Your nutrition, if it's, off the charts bad, it's going to affect the baby. There's a lot of different things that can cause stress. I mean, even something as simple as you had a big move from Chicago to St. Louis, whatever it is, during your pregnancy, that can have an effect on the kid. Next one is interventions during labor. Interventions are there, and I'm so glad that they're there, because they're a great thing for our kids to be able to have, and for moms to be able to have. If you look at stats from the World Health Organization, C-section rates should be about 10%. Our country, though, we're at about 40 to 50% of our pregnancies go through C-sections. Not a bad thing, but they should be used as not as a last resort, but as not a first resort, if that makes sense. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a good, healthy birth, and having a vaginal birth is one of those things. So your head is made of all these different bones that line up, and as you're born, they overlap, and then they come back to normal. That starts what's called the CSF pump, the fluid that's around your brain that gets that moving and flushing out the toxins. Again, I don't want to dive into all the perfect storm stuff. We have separate webinars and different live events on this, which we'll talk about at the end. We'll dive deep into that. But next step is stressed out, colicky newborn. Kid that's fussy all the time, nonstop, can't sleep, crying, never slows down. That's a huge stress on people, and you can see it on the parents when a kid is like that. So stress, sick kid, chronic ear infections, strep regularly, repeated times, always has sinus issues, runny nose, nonstop sick. Everybody knows these kids. I knew multiple of these kids growing up. Leads into spectrum or sensory issues. So we're looking more towards the ADD, ADHD, autism, spectrum issues, sensory issues at this point. And this is where we started seeing Aaron, was once he hit this point. Imagine if we could have gotten all the way back to, back right after he was born. If we could have cleared this up at that point, how amazing would that be? That's our goal for this and the reasoning for doing this. And then lastly, like I said, that burnout, where the kid's just down and out. Again, everybody knows these kids. Nobody wants their kid to deal with that or have to go through that. So that's the perfect storm in a nutshell. Like I said, we're going to talk about more opportunities to learn about this here in just a second. So a quote here that I love from Bruce Lipton: you cannot be in a state of growth and protection at the same time. So many of these kids, and adults even, are in this state of protection, sympathetic overload, fight or flight constantly. If your body is in that state, it cannot continue to grow, okay? If you're getting chased by a tiger back in the prehistoric days, right? You get chased by a tiger, all your blood flow is going where? Your extremities, your arms, your legs. You got to get out of town, right? Of course, Aaron, when I asked him about this, he said he would fight the tiger. Again, probably not a winning proposition there, but all the blood flow goes everywhere else. Your body is in fight or flight mode. You got to get out of town. What happens is when that blood flow leaves, where's it going from? It's leaving your digestive system. It's leaving your kidneys, your heart, your lung. Well, your heart and your lungs are still going to be getting oxygenated because you're in that fight or flight, and it has to be. But you cannot be in growth, okay? Your rest and digest system is not functioning, and that is where you grow. So you cannot be in a state of growth and protection at the same time. All right, here's a picture of a big, beautiful oak tree. Another cliche that I love is, when is the best time to plant a tree? years ago. Second best time is yesterday. Third best time is today. So I'm encouraging you, those who want to plant this health in your child or even in yourself, right now is the time to do it. Yesterday would have been better, but today is just fine. So here's what we're going to do for everybody checking out this webinar. Contact us, shoot us a text. Our phone number is 636-549-9004. Text us your name, your kid's name, and the best time to call you tomorrow, so being Wednesday. And what we're going to do for you, normally our initial exam is $99 and then $50 for x-rays if they're necessary. We're going to do all of that for $47. Okay, so text us, like I said, your name, your kid's name, the best time to call you. That $47 is going to be donated to the National Family Wellness Alliance. And what that does, that money goes straight into research for pediatric chiropractic. Something we're passionate about, something we are really happy to give back to. It does a lot, not just for our profession, but for the kids that we serve. So like I said, upcoming events, we're going to go over that a little bit here. February 4th, we're going to talk about ADHD and sensory categories. We're going to try and take some of those different stigmas, the diagnoses, and really the labels away from that and try and understand what truly is going on with these kids. February 16th, proprioceptive seekers webinar. So the kids that are fidgety, that have the tics, the tongue doing different things, that's all trying to get feedback to your brain because it's not getting there the way that it should be. March 14th, this is the big one, Perfect Storm Live. I encourage, everyone to go to it. It's such a great webinar event, packed with information. It's just our favorite one to do. So if you can make that March 14th, check it out, register for it. Then March 24th, we're doing asthma and allergies. Again, we're going back to a webinar format on that. So that being said, thank you everybody for coming and checking out this webinar. Hope I didn't take up too much of your time. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. We're already getting a few texts coming through here. I'm super excited to just sit down and chat. And if you guys ever need to just sit down and chat, we do complimentary consultations. Thank you all again for watching this. Love and appreciate each and every one of you.